There are lots of interesting lore tidbits rolled into the new Belisarius Cawl novel, Magos by Guy Haley. We will cover Cawl's part of the story in this video and address if he learns how to close warp rifts, if we find out anything of interest about the war in heaven, a little, and how an ally of his might now hold the cure to a Necron curse. So, welcome friends to another 40k video, and let's begin. Solana is a member of the Mechanicus and has been sent to observe Cawl by Rabute Gilliman, and Cawl is smart enough to know this. So Cawl, Solana plus QVO, a friend of Cawl's from the Heresy times, and who he is slowly trying to restore to full life, and Alpha Primus, a creation of Cawl's and his Gene's son, travel down to a Necron wall world. It's on the edge of a black hole, and Cawl has used his smarts to get down to the world. He also has a Necron's head with him. She's called Asanathayu, and she provides a secondary temporal field for them on the war world's surface. The Necron hates Cawl. He says she is a chronomancer and knows exactly how to manipulate time on a precise local level so that none of us will be rendered into subatomic energy smears. Due to being on the edge of a black hole, the planet is frozen in time and dates back to the war in heaven. It's frozen except within the area of the Necron head's abilities. Asanathayu, they find a dead Eldari and look at his armour, different to that on record. His gun lacked the long acceleration cowling, common to shuriken weapons, making it appear oddly truncated. In case of the cowl, the end of the weapon sported grav acceleration arms that resembled the bow and a backward crossbow. C. Impulsion is provided by this exposed gravity sling here, not concealed like in contemporary weaponry, and no soulstone they observe as they came later. They enter a Necron pyramid. Cawl knows where the data core is, as he says. The technology of the Necrons is at its height, and at that point it became heavily templated, a little like the STC systems of our own ancestors, Cawl continues, which means that although their various nations had an idiosyncratic approach to architecture, albeit defined overall by their species idiom, their data centers, power cores, and so forth are often relatively easy to find. And Cawl wonders if this progression towards homogenization is a common feature of advanced technological societies. I should look into it, he says. They go deeper into the war world and find a number of chronomancers frozen in time, and as they pass the 16th, Cawl picks him out. The monster is freed by Asanathayu, and after a brief fight, Cawl speaks with one of the chronomancers, aiming for common cause. This one is of the Induk dynasty, Pharaoh Laskek, and he thinks his dynasty are at war with Asanathayu. The cryptek says, "You are of the Nihilak dynasty. You are the threat to us." Asanathayu doesn't know about this, and Cawl asks why his dynasty is here. Laskek says, "I will try. Your physiology is feeble and speaks of low intellect. I suppose that is why you have crudely enhanced your baseline biology." And Laskek continues, "We are of the Induk dynasty. We were awoken when our tomb world was threatened with bombardment. We averted this disaster only to find in the process that your people, Cryptek, the Necrons of Nihilak, were behind the attack. They see Cawl is from their future, and they want to access the data nexus. Asanathayu's dynasty has infected them with the mind plague, the flare virus that makes Necrons beasts that want to eat flesh." Laskek says, "We seek unadulterated data, programming from the beginning of our race. From when the Necron tier became Necron, we must purge ourselves of contamination, replace that which is corrupt with that which is pure." And so Cawl and these new Necrons agree to help each other. The group stay on guard and flayers come. One interesting thing to note is, as they fight, the flayed ones are not affected by the slowing of time. Primus knows from Cawl's teachings that Necrons were masters at dimensional manipulation, employing pocket realms, alternative dimensions, and interstitial spaces, sandwiched between the immaterium and the materium to move across the galaxy. They defeat the first weave of Necron flayed. The Pharaoh who joined them and Cawl locate the data point and try to find the data they want. When the Necrons can't break the coding, Cawl, with his own version of Necron tech, offers to break the code, and his mind goes elsewhere. Not long after, aided by QVO, they return. QVO holds the info the Necrons desire, and the Pharaoh demands it be handed over. Alpha Primus rips the head from the Pharaoh with his psychic might. Cawl swung the head of Asanathayu into the body that remained which fell back into the time field, so the Pharaoh's body was in two places. This didn't go well. He dies, and Slanna notices how QVO is moving more naturally with the Necron data aiding him. Cawl says he's never heard of the Induk dynasty, and now he knows why. They became flayed or are removed from time. Asanathayu says her people must have won the war. Cawl gets them back to the ship quickly as Alpha Primus cuts an opening with a Necron scythe and levitates them down. He's very drained by this. Slanna notices how they are rushing, and Cawl says due to their manipulation of time, the warworld will fall into the black hole at any moment. Cawl says the planet is toast and no one understands what he means. The surface of the warworld rippled with asynchronous moments. Buildings fell into themselves or were torn up entirely, like teeth yanked from gums, and went spinning away towards the blankness of the singularity. Bubbles of reality ballooned around each other, into each other, overwriting one another and bursting, but they escape its grasp. Meanwhile, Felix, an ally of Cawl, protects the Blackstone pylons he needs. Cawl uses the knowledge QVO has in his noggin to activate what's there, and then we get the result. The code hit the first pylon, then the next and the next, one after another, and they ignited. Tech priests sang hosannas to the machine god and the genius of Belisarius Cawl as the hybrid machines achieved full activation. Clear sections of power conduits lit in series as Necron energies coursed through circuitry last utilised thousands of years before the Emperor had risen up on old Earth and united its warring peoples. Attaining the pyramidal tops of the Blackstone needles, this power was converted, energizing the pylons, linking them together in songs of material defiance. Contra-empiric fields grew in potency at a geometric rate, 8 times 8 times 8, entering a reinforcing feedback loop that saw the pattern repeated over and over again. Unified, the pylons projected a toroidal field that was inimical to the warp, and it spread, the outer surface racing outwards, the inner surface twisting with counter-spiritual torsion and moving towards the core of the demonic incursions. This affects everyone in the area. Those living it weakens their connection to their souls, the soul grinders and the unborn souls who were warring with Felix and the others. Forces of Cawl go. The demons vanish like smoke in the wind, and this one intrigued me. The Knights of Tronis found themselves battling panicky mounts as the ghosts of their ancestors wavered in the face of nullification, and the navigators went blind for a moment. The warp gates melted into ectoplasmic steams, and the contra-empiric field twisted into itself. Writhing, it seemed for the briefest sliver of a second that it would run out of control, but Cawl had built the machine himself, and he had done it well. They recalibrated automatically, and what began as a toroid became a spear that the pylons cast heavenward, directly at the heart of the pit of Raucus. The pit was coming up in the east. Slanna drew comparisons between the pit and the scoring anomaly. Both were holes in the fabric of the universe. Both had hearts of uttermost darkness. Both were dangerous to everything around them. But where the black hole had been a full stop to the story of time and space, the pit was the spawning ground of new dreadful tales. A black hole marks the uncrossable border of eternity. The doors of a warp rift twist, swing both ways. Such doors can be closed. It took 5 minutes for the spear of energy to hit the pit. It connected dead centre. The whole of the warp rift convulsed like an eye shutting on a painful intrusion. The illusion broke, turning into another, that of a whirlpool sucking itself away to nothing. Then to another, a hole rapidly filling with sand. All was a whirl, a pattern of oily patches, and smeary purplish light that shrank. A blink, the last light of a train vanishing deep in a tunnel. And I wish I'd edited all that down a lot better than I have done. The pit was gone. After Cawl orders the energy the pylons commanded to be lowered, saying humans need the warp. Then it worked, said Cawl slowly. Then louder. It's actually, provably worked. He laughed in delight. Go tell that to Rabuti Gilman, his storator. He laughed again. I know when I say I'm being Belisarius Cawl, and I can do anything. It makes me look a little egotistical. QVO after says that it was a little too easy. And in other chapters in this book, we see Vashtor, the Archifane, has an interest in Cawl, and it's hinted that he might have organised some of what happened here and in the previous book. That's why it was easy. So, closing thoughts, that probably quite a bit of recording to do still, but closing thoughts. He closes the Warp Rift, which means he might be able to close others, and with enough pylons, maybe the Great Rift that opened with the fall of Cadia. Maybe something that mimics Cadia to fill the void, perhaps? We will see. That would be a major boon from the Imperium and a big loss for Chaos, but you'd have to scale this up a lot, I think. One line also intrigued me, and these 2 points are on QVO. After gaining the Necron knowledge, it's mentioned he walks more naturally. Could it have restored some of his humanity? Think on this. Cawl's been working to restore his friend, and has been doing well recently to do that. Might that restoration make QVO an abominable intelligence? And Cawl's mind is made of many minds over the centuries he's been alive, so even his friend restored might not be who he was. Or wouldn't that be a killer plot line? Cawl versus the Mechanicus, QVO dragged into some sort of a heresy, something that is provable against Cawl. This fella also might hold the cure to the flare virus. That's if the Necron's idea of the flare virus not being within the data when the Necrons were still tier, and the Imperial Knight's mind being affected when the Blackstone pylons were activated, the minds of ancestors that make up its, let's say, personality. So that means something, maybe a part of their soul, is stored within the Imperial Knights. We know the memories are, but I didn't think it was quite that tied into the warp. So that bit of tech is way more advanced than the Imperium knows. Even Dark Age, perhaps? You know, I'll jump on that whenever I can. So, Guy Haley books always have a load of little interesting tidbits, and this was a really good one to go through and to discuss with you. Worth checking out, and let's wrap things up here.